Yesterday I filmed the video where we built this puppy over here. This is the Cougar Duoface Pro RGB paired with a 13700K and a RTX 4070. As a cooler we got that Cougar Forza 135, however I exchanged the fans for a bunch of Cougar's own white MHP 120. For the rest of the case I spec'd it out as much as I could. I replaced the back fan with a Arctic P14 ARGB also in white, and we got two exhaust fans in the top, also P14 ARGBs. And then as the last step we got in the bottom two Lee & Lee LCD Uni TL fans. Reverse spinning, so they are pushing air into the GPU, and to be honest they don't really do anything. I mean, it's basically blocked off to the bottom. They might help to redirect the air, but that's basically it. And what I said at the end of the video yesterday was that I wanted to benchmark the crap out of the different fan settings and then replace the glass front with the mesh one and see what type of difference there is nowadays where glass is not anymore like squished to the fans, but you get like an actual finger thick gap in between, and just see how the thing will behave if you exchange it for the obviously better performing mesh front panel. Of course under the umbrella of we have actual cooling. It's not like this is a pre-build where we have like that stock AMD cooler on top, that Roth whatever, and we pretend like the glass is changing anything. And to be honest, the differences are bigger than I expected. Like the gap in the front, it's a finger thick gap. However, there are differences. So what did we did? Essentially I set the CPU to have P cores running at 5.1 GHz and E cores at 4.1, and that means that if I hit it with a CPU burner where we are burning up 200 watts constantly at the beginning, and then as everything becomes harder that wattage will go up, but we start at 200. For the GPU I set everything to stock, nothing changed, and I also set the fan curve to stock, so I didn't touch it at all, and the GPU will do whatever the GPU think is right. For the fans, however, I have everything grouped into individual groups. We have the front fans, the top fans, the back fan, the Lee & Lees, and the three that are sitting on the CPU cooler. And the approach here was quite simple. At the beginning we had everything running at 100% except for the GPU. The GPU was doing whatever it wants to do, but every fan that I actually installed was running at 100%. Then I measured the temperature of the CPU package, subtracted the ambient air temperature, and there we got the above ambient, and then I repeated that process for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different fan speed configurations. So the stock one is just everything at 100. The second one essentially is the case fans, so intake exhaust running at 70% of whatever speed they are doing. Like the P14s I think are doing like 1600, 1400, something like that, and the front one are doing like 1200 max. So 70% of whatever this actual max performance number is, and the CPU still running, or the CPU fans still running at 100, and then going down from there, everything to 70, then case to 50, CPU staying at 70, then everything at 50, and then case at 30, CPU at 50. And I believe that last one where the case fans are barely spinning at 30%, however the CPU is still clocking, or the CPU fans are still quite high at 50, that's like the most appropriate or the most important metric. After doing all of that, I basically just popped this one off, and now I have fingerprints all over that thing. It will be a miracle if I can pop it on without looking at it. I can do that. Yes, I'm using the display that is sitting on top of my camera. Ha! Okay, so then I popped the mesh panel on and I repeated the whole process and calculated the differences in between A and B. Now, for the ambient temperature, it was actually very stable. We started off at 24.6 degrees C here in the room, and that gradually increased to 25.4, which I can't do anything about that except for calculating the above ambient temperature for every stat that I got. And by doing that, I, to some degree, eliminate the ambient air temperature difference throughout that whole test. So let's take a look at those numbers. Having everything running at 100%, so the case fans, intake, exhaust, and the CPU, and of course the Lee & Lees in the bottom, the CPU package average temperature reached 73.2 degrees C above ambient. The GPU at that time was sitting at 46.4 degrees C above ambient. Again, to reiterate, the GPU, or the GPU fan curve, was doing whatever it wanted to do. I didn't change anything there. However, that was under the glass panel. Now once I replaced that panel, the CPU package average temperature dropped to 70.4. That's a drop of 2.8 from that original value. For the GPU, we dropped from the 46.4 down to 45.6, giving us a change of minus 0.8, which is more than I expected. Like, given that the original panel and this one too has like a finger thick gap, I thought the difference might be at max 1 degree, but no, it was slightly more, resulting in a change of 2.8, which is okay. It's more than I thought. Then we dropped the case fans to 70% and left the CPU still at 100, and then the CPU package average temperature using the glass panel went up to 75.2 degrees C, and popping the mesh panel back on, the difference became slightly bigger at minus 3 degrees C by switching out the panel. For the GPU, on the other hand, it's exactly the same thing, minus 0.8 degrees C from 47 degrees down to 46.2, so no change there. The one outliner in all of the benchmarks we've done is when everything was running at 70%. For some reason, that was like the biggest decrease in temperature by switching out the panels. For everything running at 70%, we were looking at 83.2 degrees C on the glass panel and 78.5 on the mesh, which means that we had a drop of 4.7 degrees C. And to put a percentage value around that, that's 5.6% less CPU package average temperature comparing glass to the mesh, which is substantially more than I expected. From there, the difference became smaller again, having the case fans running at 50% and the CPU fans still running at 70. We are looking at just minus 0.5. There the difference became negligible at best. 0.5 is like nothing, that's margin of error. Running at 50%, the change became bigger again, not as big as before. There we are looking at 88.5 degrees C above ambient for the glass panel and 86.6 for the mesh, resulting in a minus of 1.9 degrees C on the CPU. For the GPU, we are there looking at minus 1.5, which is again more than a degree bigger. However, considering that the fan was doing whatever it wants to, that's more like the control group than anything else. Then for the last test, we set the case fans, again, intake exhaust to 30% and the CPU fans were still hitting that 50%. There we started off at 89.2 degrees C on the package with the glass and we dropped to 86.9 using the mesh, which results in a 2.3 degrees C loss for the mesh panel essentially, which is the most important value for me in all of these numbers. Like, that's essentially what you would do all day long. The CPU fans should be spinning slightly faster and the case fans just need to recycle the air so they don't need to work as hard as the CPU fans have to. And having that scenario and a 2.3 degrees C difference essentially means, yes, that gap in between the glass panel and the side, how should I say, is not enough to counter the benefits of having just holes in front of the fans. Even if I believe that 5.6% decrease in temperature for that one scenario is quite big, it's not like it's a day and night change. It's not like you can expect 10 degrees C difference, of course not. The absolute max we saw is 4.7 and that's under a very specific condition. And across the whole line we are a lot lower than that. We are looking at everything in between 0.5% to the 5.6% difference, where half of this is more in the 2-3% change, which it's a difference and you would need to decide for yourself if that difference is... Now, first off, you need to decide if you prefer the mesh to the glass, and then from there you can decide if the up to 5.6% difference is worth it or not for you to opt for the mesh panel. But here you have a basic understanding of how this case behaves when you switch out the panels. Now, of course, all of these results are tailor-made for this exact build with these exact components and this exact CPU and this air cooler with the triple fan thing and everything. So your mileage may very well vary, and if you, for example, take a much lower TDP chip, let's say you take a 14600 non-K and you hit that, well, the difference will become probably a lot smaller, down to negligible at best, down to not even like measurable at all. So your mileage may vary, but once you pop it high enough, you will see differences that in our case reach a maximum of 5.6%. For the GPU, on the other hand, the differences were going from 0.8 up to 1.9, which negligible at best. So in a case like this, where you can choose between mesh and glass or mesh and soundproof, like in Be Quiet's case, yeah, you should definitely take mesh. Mesh will always perform better, or you can slow down the fan speed and there will be a difference. However, again, 5.6% or 4.7 degrees as an absolute maximum in a very specific scenario. The mesh is definitely better, but it's not like this is going to change the world. Now, before we end this, back then, when Arctic sent along those Arctic P14 ARGB fans, they had something else in the package. Because what if you are sitting on your desk, you have your PC running, and the PC is cold as hell, you have very good cooling in it, but you are hot? Well, that's where this little puppy comes in. This is the Some Air Plus in white from Arctic, and I found it so cool because it is essentially a Arctic P12 with reverse fans, because it's essentially an Arctic P12 for you. This is so cool. If you take a look at the fan blades, it's really essentially an Arctic P12. I think also like from the size, yeah, this is definitely a P12 just reverse. And this whole thing is battery driven. It is rechargeable using USB-C, which is quite cool and future-proof for Europe, and essentially it pulls air from the back and then just blasts it into your face, and it is quite a lot louder than a P12, that I can say. It can ramp up to, maybe not blow into the microphone, it can blow up to 3300 RPM, and they don't say anything else. Nope, I have no clue about the CFM or about the static pressure, but this thing can get 3300 RPM is a lot. Yeah, this can get pretty strong. I would not stick my finger in it. And there we are, mesh panel to keep the PC cool and Arctic Some Air Plus USB-C battery power to keep myself cool. It would be such a stupid idea to put this on my desk. I will just stick my finger in it at some point. I can guarantee you that that will happen 100%. I need to stop this. But okay, for today, no. Not spin faster. But okay, for today, this is going to be it. It was just a quick recap of the numbers we gathered yesterday. And for myself, I can now begin with the review of this puppy, which will be both negative and positive. There are quite a few things that I have to nag about this case. But for today, this is going to be it. Keep the mesh panel, always go mesh, but it's not like the glass will break anything, as long as the case is designed in a not so stupid way. But okay, for today, this is going to be it. But if you want to continue watching, have a look at our take on those Lian Li Uni fans with that monitor on top, because more monitor is more better. Thank you for watching and hope to see you in the next one. Bye bye.